Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dragonslayer Codex. I'm Sawyer Lee, and today allow me to introduce you to a fearsome and unusual sort of dragon from an unusual land. Now that may cover most of them, but today is one of particular interest, a beast known as the Fumehorn. Now today we're going to do something a little bit differently. I've foregone the script in exchange for something a little more conversational. Something as if I am going to tell you, the young slayer out new on the field, how to approach these beasts. What about them you might need to know from my own wealth of knowledge bestowed onto you. So, young slayer, let's get into it. Now, every dragon has to come from somewhere, and this beast's habitat is known as Dead Man's Gulch. Incredibly comforting, isn't it? Now, the Gulch is located west of the Gorge Lands, so has an arid element to it. Yet, it's so close to the ocean that there's a humidity present. In fact, during the spring and summer months, it gets so lush with a fast-growing plant that you couldn't even walk anywhere without something of a machete or scythe to cut your way through. These plants grow so quickly that if you were to stand still, they would wrap around your legs and immobilize you within the day. Now, why do they need to grow so fast? Well, the answer to that is in a diminutive little bug called the wolf ant. Now, diminutive only applies to a few, for this ant species is so diverse in its classes and ranks and morphological diversity that initially they were thought to be all separate species. For you see, the wolf ant can range in size from a classic little woodcutter ant to, as its namesake suggests, that of a dog or a wolf. The larger specimens are hairy as well, in a way similar to a tarantula, and also suggest a hairiness, a wolfiness to them. Now, these creatures emerge during the spring to feast on the overgrown plants. They eat so vigorously that they mow down the entire habitat throughout the late summer and into the early fall, when they render the place basically a desert, a wasteland, something where you'd see a little dust bowl forming. And then the winter sets in. And after they've eaten their fill, they all go back underground to their massive hives and spinning corridors, and they brumate, they rest, and they reproduce and multiply until spring comes again, when they may dominate the surface with the new overgrown plants that have quickly replaced their formers. Now, these plants need the ants to survive, for they've evolved to grow so quickly that they choke out the undergrowth and prevent any new plants from arising. And as such, if there were no ants to eat them, genetic diversity would bottleneck. No new plants would emerge, and evolution for them would halt for a little while. Well, evolution never truly halts, but you get what I'm saying. These ants ensure that new generations and new genetic coin flips happen within this plant's community that might offer new ingenuity in how different species of plant repopulate Dead Man's Gulch. Now, this is all well and good, and these ants serve a role similar to every ecological space, from mesopredator to local small apex predator to grazer to small, medium, and large herbivore, you name it. But dragons are the ones that rule the skies, not the ants. And, of course, the dragon has found this little insect paradise and has claimed it as its own kingdom. And that dragon is our subject of today, the Fumehorn. This is a beast which, for a dragon, looks pretty frightening. It has a smashed face and huge devil-like horns reminiscent of the Carnotaurus of Earth. It has sunken-in eyes that glow a beady reddish and cross-shaped pupils that help it see both widely horizontal like a goat and vertical up and down like a serpent. It is prepared for anything, and funny enough, and frighteningly enough, is known to stand still for long periods of time, simply gazing on its territory until it sees the slightest motion in the brush made from the larger individuals of the wolf ants for it to then charge down and crush under its hoof-like foot, lapping up the insect's juices like a sort of smoothie. Now, I say hoof-like foot, for the Fumehorn's claws have been reduced to a classical 3 seen in theropod dinosaurs. Dragons usually possess 4 or 5 toes on their foot. These 3 claws have sort of a hoof-like shape, as this dragon cannot truly fly. It has small wings compared to its body size, and having such an abundant food source, it has no need to fly after food or fly long distances in pursuit of food, and as the largest dragon on its habitat, it has no need to fly away from predators. So it's grown large, it's grown comfortable, and like a fat cat, it can eat at its leisure in this habitat. Now, its scales are often of a dark green color, though it can range to a black, to a grayish, to an almost golden as well in some rare specimens. The Fumehorns have a red underside, however, which is present in every adult male. These red fiery sides were initially thought to be from the glow of heat, something that resembles the glowing afterburn on the hole-taker's face. Now, the tail of the creature, as I said before, drags on the ground similar to some vintage depictions of dinosaurs and ends in a terrible clubbed tip, which can batter enemies from any sort of distance. The Fumehorn's legs are stout but powerful, able to push it along the ground at leisure. And leisure is important to these dragons. They're not exactly quick moving. They're quick in a short turn, but they're not ones to pursue a slayer endlessly throughout the forest as something like a gaping killneck might, whose endurance was through the roof. Now, this creature will pursue until it's bored, as food is so abundant in its habitat that if it can't have you, it might as well just turn and eat something else. Now, there's something novel about humans to these dragons, as humans don't settle there. The ants take up that underground niche, and the dragons are specialized in rooting out things that exist underground. And they've done that to any attempted fort that settlers might set up, notably the peppermen, who have attempted several exploration and colonization attempts within this territory. Now let me tell you about the Fumehorn's breath weapon. It is similar to the Veilrite in that it's a stream of smoke. However, it's, instead of being laced with poison, it's laced with small red licks of fire. It creates a very interesting appearance. Now, what this does functionally is subdue the ants that it likes to feed on. It will use its huge horns or its clubbed tail or its big, heavy, hoofed feet to crack open the top of an anthill when the soldiers come pouring forth to deal with the threat. It will unleash its entire reserve of fire, of smoky fire onto these soldier ants, often the size, remember, of wolves, and eat them at its own pace. It's so good at rooting things out of tight-knit spaces that it's done so with several early explorers. These underground little forts that people build will be peeked at through different windows with a strange cross-shaped eye. It'll be inspected over the course of a night by the patient dragon, and then its roof will suddenly peel right off and smoke will pour right in. Humans don't go into a torpor from the smoke, but as you can imagine, the heat and the way that smoke can suck up the oxygen in the room make for a particularly nasty way to go out. Now, the Fumehorns, their relationship with humans in this way is sort of in its beginning stages, but like many dragons on this world, this list, it's a predatory one. Humans are food for them, and what can you expect more from a large reptile? That said, there is a glaring weakness with the Fumehorn, and that's after it moves at a considerable pace, let's say a lunge or a charge with its horns, its brain cannot process so much visual information all at once through these specialized eyes. And it needs a good few seconds, between 5 to 10, to recalibrate what happened. And usually that's no problem, as they are the largest predators on this island and can take all the time they need. However, if you are attempting to escape one, that's the method to use. Baiting a charge or having some brave soul run in front of one in an attempt to make it lunge is a fantastic way to ensure you get an extra 10 seconds of runaway time, or time to dip into a hiding spot, or, if you're brave, lure it into a trap. A trap, like a spiked pitfall or a trip, or any sort of long lance for it to impale itself upon, is the ideal method. And if you were to bait it into falling for something, then you can study the beast at your leisure. And that is until the ants take over. Now, how do these creatures deal with each other then? Well, competition isn't exactly very tight during the spring and summer. There's food to go around for all. And these normally solitary dragons can congregate in loose bands that lounge together. They could be seen laying under shade of a rocky outcrop or maybe a tree, and they can hunt ants wherever. That said, as the desert's crawl seeps in, and as the winter sets in, as the ants destroy every bit of plant matter that exists throughout, that's when it gets tight. This is when the Fumehorn normally lays its eggs, so that the eggs may hatch again in the spring. However, such a tight time can lead them to turning hungry eyes towards each other. You see, the Fumehorns might target each other's eggs for quick protein, or even smaller Fumehorns are targeted by larger, older individuals who seriously need the energy to get themselves through even just a day. So, this peace treaty of the summer expires quickly in the autumn. This is when the dragons are their most aggressive, and when you would want to encounter them the least, as this is when they are hungry and when they may pursue a traveler for a little bit longer than they might in the summer. It's harder to lose them as well, as the formerly lush jungle-like environment swiftly turns into this arid and open desert. These eggs, as I mentioned before, are a dark purplish brownish color. They're laying in clutches of 5 in a shallow dirt nest scooped out by these hoof-like talons. These dragons aren't exactly nest architects, so to speak. Now, when they do hatch, it is in the early spring, and that is shortly before the ants wake up. The ants will come out of their torpor hungry and sort of disorientated, and that's when disorientated, isn't that funny? Anyway, but you know what I mean. That's when the ants will take their turn to be the prey. Parents will feed these disorientated ants to their chicks while they are unable to really fight back. The chicks will lap up the juices, get stronger, and grow to a manageable size as the worst of them come forth to feed on the newly regrown plant life. Chicks can run shortly after hatching, and they are better runners than their parents. Their legs are proportionally longer, their wings are smaller, and their eyes are bigger. As such, they can spot and avoid threats such as these predatory castes of ant, the warriors, and run from them, as they are targeted by the very ants that they eat. They're also targeted by several species of predatory dragonelle, which may act as hawks do, swooping down on the young dragons. And of course, any predatory fish or large salamanders that target them from the waters. Makes for a dangerous world for the little dragon. To deal with this, the young Fumehorn is capable of changing color. From a reddish to a teal to a yellow, the baby Fumehorn can, like a chameleon, shift the hue of its scales to best match its environment, and the unwary slayer can be snuck up on by an inquisitive young little dragon. And where there's one, there's usually its siblings following close behind. And do not be fooled by their cute appearance. These very autonomous little creatures are shortly followed by their parents. And since there are now several hungry mouths to feed, you might make a great little midday snack for them. So, the Fumehorn is a beast of a bipolar beast from a bipolar land. It is a horribly wicked shaped face, yet lounges like a fat cat half the year and eats its own kind for the second half. This is also how scholars suggest they keep their population intact. Fumehorns are strange creatures and worthy of more study. Only the southern horn of the Dead Man's Gulch has been explored. More might be waiting up north. Maybe more subspecies of Fumehorn. Maybe more into their nature. Maybe more that could be explored in future Codex installations. Who knows, right? And so with that, I want to say thank you for watching this video. We're going to start a new tradition on this channel, and that is to highlight a featured artist. As you might have noticed, there was a bit of fan art used earlier in the video. It's a gorgeous sculpt done by a fantastic artist, and I'm going to show him again up here for reference. Please go follow him. He's incredible, super nice guy too. So of course today he is our featured artist. Incredible work, man. Thank you so much for doing this. And future picks for featured artists will be selected either from my Discord's fan art channel or from Instagram. Let's use the hashtag #SLeeFanart. Alright, thank you guys so much. And thank you to my patrons for making this possible. I could not do this without you. I hope you enjoyed this more conversational style of video. I'm trying to shake my content up a little bit, and I hope you enjoy, and thank you for coming along with me on this journey. I will see you in the next installment. Thank you.